Hey everybody, Dave Neal here, stand-up comedian and host of the SAP podcast. Today I wanted to talk about the Joe Rogan Experience and what's going on over at Spotify. If you aren't caught up with what's happening over there, Joe Rogan Experience was moved over to Spotify in a licensing deal for over $100 million, a multi-year deal where Spotify will have the complete catalog of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, the video, audio formats, and they're basically going to be the only people that will be able to distribute it, except for some clips here and there that Rogan will be able to keep on YouTube. This has been over a $100 million deal. It was really big news in the spring. But what we're learning is that there's a bunch of meetings happening within Spotify to try to censor certain podcast episodes. Some of the Joe Rogan episodes haven't made it up to the Spotify platform yet, and people were wondering, is it some grand conspiracy that they don't want right-wing or conservative talking points, or was it just that they couldn't upload the several thousand episodes all at once? So let's dive right into what's going on. We'll talk about it, and if you're not a fan of Joe Rogan Experience, this conversation is more about protecting open forum, long-form conversations on the internet. The reason people got into podcasting in the first place, like a ton of stand-up comedians, professors, conversationalists, is because they were sick and tired of this short-form medium that the general media presents. These 1 minute long, 20-second long talking points, all these debates where you have to just have your zinger and be good to go. Podcasting has really evolved into a more nuanced conversation where you can talk with people that you disagree with. You can learn more about what someone's point of view is, not just what the subject title is of an argument. So anyway, what happened in the spring is the Joe Rogan Experience signed a licensing deal, a $100 million plus licensing deal with Spotify, which means Rogan will still own his podcast, but for the next several years, whether it's 3 to 5 years, Spotify will have all rights to the podcast to distribute it on its platforms. I think Rogan's still going to be able to have some clips from each podcast on YouTube, but it was a really big deal and probably the biggest of its kind that's ever been done. A lot of people were wondering, is this going to lead to censorship? And a lot of his fans were hesitant because, Rogan's known for having just these open, crazy conversations with people from all over. It's as someone who has seen, listened to, and watched a bunch of Rogan episodes, and as a podcaster myself, it's wild to me that the smear campaign that's happened ever since Rogan has been attached to a company like Spotify. Because beforehand, you could boycott whatever sponsors wanted to associate with Rogan, but it was really just a three-man shop. He had him, Jamie, and whoever their third guy is, no one knows. Just a three-man shop. But the problem with these larger companies like Spotify and companies like Wondery is that they just ruin all the good things that we like about podcasting, which is just somebody turning their microphones on and having an open conversation with other people. That's what we love about podcasting. That's why we got into this medium, which is such an archaic, with all the crazy different platforms out there. We just want to hear people talk most of the time, right? It's pretty old school. So what happened was he signed the $100 million deal, and then people were worried that he was going to get censored. Well, not all of his episodes have made it onto the platform. They were missing Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, a bunch of just random people, more conservative, I would say, than liberal. And, not to paint Joe into a corner, he's very complicated with what he represents. He wanted Tulsi Gabbard as president. He endorsed Bernie Sanders. He had Andrew Yang on, and he's all about universal basic income. He also commentates mixed martial arts. He's gun-toting. He moved to Texas. You can't just say someone's left or right anymore. It's not as easy as that. It's not as simple as that. So the thing that started this whole mess over at Spotify is that there are employees that want to censor some of his podcasts. They want to put trigger warnings. They want to basically say they want to be able to see if they fit into Spotify's code of ethics, which is fine. They're a company. Free speech exists constitutionally, but it doesn't exist within private held companies. They can decide if they want to fire someone for any sort of morality clause. But you would think that with Rogan's contract in such a large deal, we only know what Rogan said of it. We haven't read the contract, but Rogan says they gave him full permission to do what he normally does, and that'll be it. But more money, more problems. What's happening over at Spotify is that they've actually found out they've had a dozen or so meetings where everyone met was supposed to be complete, not open to the public, private meeting where they discuss what to do moving forward, because some Spotify employees want to strike, specifically because of this one episode that Joe Rogan had recently where he had somebody on who wrote a book about issues within the trans community. We'll get into that. But I just want to say, as a podcaster, as an indie podcaster, there's nothing more annoying than seeing companies like Wondery, who, podcasting company, they raise millions of dollars to create this, huge catalog of shows. There's all these employees that are on the business side. No one even knows what they do. And there's just this battle that's waged on for all of time between creative and business. I used to work in advertising. They put the creative people on the 16th floor and the business people on the 20th floor. They didn't want a mixing because the business people want to say, we need to, advertise to this sort of people. And the creative people are saying, let's just put out content that we enjoy. And Rogan has always sided on the creative side, saying, I like what I like. I want to interview a flat earther. I want to interview someone who left the Church of Latter-day Saints, or whatever it is. He's all over the map. So it's a little suspect when only certain sides of an argument are being censored. And also the articles that came out calling Rogan transphobic for even having these conversations, it's almost like if you talk about race, you're considered racist in today's world. It used to be, it would be racial. So I don't think everything has to be taken to an extreme. We should applaud somebody who's having 12 to 15 hours of conversations a week about tough subjects. Nobody wants to touch this subject. I understand why. Even though we still have our freedom of speech, even though Rogan still has his freedom of speech, there's such thing as deplatforming. There's such thing as shadow banning. There's such thing as demonetizing. I can't swear or else YouTube will demonetize this video. I can't talk about lewd acts or certain conspiracy theories or this video gets demonetized. Now, I still maintain my freedom of speech, but I'm being nudged in a direction of somebody else's choosing about what we should and shouldn't talk about. And as a society with a lot of complex issues, I think that's a dangerous space to be in. I think we should be applauding the ability to have challenging conversations. But we live in the most conservative first world country in the world, that we are just wanting to turn a blind eye to conversations people actually want to have, which is what made podcasting really popular in the first place. And now because there's money involved with Spotify, there's a place where, people who disagree with Rogan's ethics, morals, podcast guests are able to threaten to strike if these episodes aren't removed. So this war that's going on, it's a big deal, whether you like Rogan or not. It's a big deal because there's money involved, and with money comes power and people deciding, what sort of podcast they are going to put on their platform. I mean, it can really become a dystopian nightmare. I want to give credit to Spotify CEO Daniel Ek. He defended recently the decision to keep the Rogan episode online. He said, and I'm going to read this for you guys, in the case of Joe Rogan, a total of 10 meetings have been held with various groups and individuals to hear their respective concerns, according to anonymous sources. And some of them want Rogan removed because of things he said in the past. Others have concerns specifically over a recent episode. And Joe Rogan and the episode in question have been reviewed extensively. The fact that we aren't changing our position doesn't mean we aren't listening. It just means we made a different judgment call. The episode Eck was referring to is one in which Rogan interviewed Abigail Shrier, author of the book Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. Her book has been widely criticized as being entirely baseless. Shrier associates transgender youth with those with autism and claims that young people are being pressured by the media into transitioning, calling it a contagion. Now, first of all, this is from a Vice article. So already we're taking a 3-hour conversation and whittling it down to 3 sentences. This is dangerous for them to be printing this. It's dangerous for me to even be talking about it because, even talking about things these days seems like you're co-signing them. The CEO said, at Spotify, we're strongly committed to the LGBTQ plus community and diversity in all of its forms. All employees are respected and we believe that everyone has a right to be heard. We have a number of forums for open and transparent discussions and we encourage rigorous debates on topics across the company. All content on Spotify is subject to our long-standing content guidelines. Our diverse team of experts reviewed the content in question and determined that it did not meet the criteria for removal from our platform. Now, this is what's really important. It's good that you're able to review things and see if they have any merit behind the complaint or not. I think this is a great step in the direction of not bending the knee to a couple employees when Rogan literally has tens, if not hundreds of millions of people who are listening to his podcast. The other point I want to make is that it's sort of insulting to the consumer to think that we can't choose with our own critical thinking what to believe and not believe. It's like if you're a parent and you teach a kid not to bleed rather than just teach him not to play with knives. You know, it's a complex world out there. We get a ton of information all day long, and it's our job within our brains to just sift through that information and decide what's true and what's not. And for the people that can't make that judgment, I think censoring what they watch and read is not going to help them. So even though the Spotify CEO took the side of Rogan in keeping up free speech and keeping up and being open to different thoughts and opinions, it does make you wonder for other creators, are they going to be more careful at what type of content they produce? Are we going to just whittle ourselves down to having no opinions whatsoever? Or are we going to challenge the source? Are we going to challenge different people's perspectives and not just label everything as transphobia or racist or sexist? There's a greater conversation to be had. Podcasting has literally been the canary in the coal mine where it's been able to show us truth amongst all this other divisiveness. There's a reason that comedians flocked to mediums like podcasting, because it gives us a chance to speak our mind, not be ruled by the FCC, not be ruled by public opinion in the most conservative first world country in the world, but a real chance to speak our truth, engage with other people, and get information out there. That's what podcasting is all about. Now, Daniel Ek, CEO of Spotify, probably made the right decision to err on the side of keeping the information out there rather than offending a couple people within his company. But I think that just by even wondering and questioning these ethical guides makes a lot of other content creators wonder if what they are posting is too risque. Now, do we really want a world where every content creator is posting just, what the majority thinks? Or do once in a while we want to dip into a weird conspiracy theory or somebody else's opinion? I mean, what better way to paint the boundaries on what we think is right than by hearing someone who thinks differently? If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, give it a like, that helps the YouTube algorithm, and leave a comment. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.